The quiet country town of Leongatha, Victoria, became the center of a shocking criminal case that captured the world's attention. At the heart of this tragedy is Erin Patterson, a 50-year-old local woman who hosted a seemingly ordinary family lunch that ended in unthinkable loss. Leongatha is typically known for its peaceful, rural atmosphere, making the events that transpired all the more jarring for the close-knit community. Erin, who had a background as an air traffic controller and was known in her social circles, would soon find her name synonymous not with her profession, but with one of Australia's most infamous poisoning cases, forever changing the town's placid reputation. On Saturday, July 29, 2023, Erin Patterson invited her former in-laws over for a meal at her home. The guest list included media group, elderly couple arriving at family lunch, grandparents greeting family, multi-generational family gathering added stock at a distribute_equally. Don and Gail Patterson, her estranged husband's parents, Gail's sister, Heather Wilkinson, and Heather's husband, Ian Wilkinson. The gathering was ostensibly a chance to reconnect and perhaps mend family ties. The menu featured a classic and comforting dish, beef Wellington, served with mashed potatoes and green beans. It was a meal that should have brought comfort and joy, but it was tragically laced with a deadly ingredient that would turn a family get-together into a national headline. Within hours of the lunch, the guests began to feel unwell, exhibiting symptoms of severe gastrointestinal distress. Their conditions rapidly deteriorated, and they were all rushed to the hospital. Medical professionals quickly identified the cause as poisoning from death cap mushrooms, one of the most lethal fungi in the world. Tragically, Don and Gail Patterson, along with Heather Wilkinson, succumbed to the poison, suffering from catastrophic multiple organ failure. The sole survivor of the meal was Ian Wilkinson, who endured a long and arduous battle for his life, requiring extensive hospitalization and treatment to recover from the devastating effects. The meal that proved fatal was carefully prepared, but the key question was how the deadly mushrooms ended up in the beef Wellington. Erin Patterson served the dish to her guests, but she herself did not appear to suffer the same severe effects as the others. This discrepancy immediately raised alarms for investigators and became a central point of contention throughout the case that followed. The community was left in a state of shock and disbelief, struggling to comprehend how a simple family lunch could have such a horrific and deadly outcome, leaving 3 people dead and 1 fighting for his life. As the community grappled with the deaths, a major police investigation began to piece together the events of that fateful day. Detectives from the homicide squad descended upon Leongatha, turning Erin Patterson's home into a crime scene. Their focus was forensic, meticulously searching for any clue that could explain the presence of the death cap mushrooms. A key piece of evidence was discovered during this search: a food dehydrator. Forensic analysis of the appliance revealed traces of death cap fungi, directly linking the deadly mushrooms to equipment found inside Erin's home and suggesting they had been prepared there. The investigation extended beyond the physical evidence found at the property. Police delved into Erin Patterson's digital footprint, examining her internet search history for any relevant activity. What they found was deeply concerning. The records showed that she had conducted online searches for information about death cap mushrooms in the period leading up to the lunch. Furthermore, investigators learned that Erin had a history of foraging for mushrooms, a hobby she reportedly took up during the COVID-19 lockdowns. This information suggested that she possessed the knowledge and experience to identify and collect wild fungi, including the poisonous varieties. When questioned by police, Erin Patterson's story seemed to shift. Initially, she told investigators that she had purchased the mushrooms from a supermarket. Later, she changed her account, claiming they came from an Asian grocery store. However, extensive police checks in 2023 confirmed that no local grocers or supermarkets stocked or sold the dangerous death cap mushrooms. This inconsistency in her statements raised significant red flags for the investigators, casting doubt on her claims that the poisoning was an unfortunate accident and pointing towards a more deliberate act. The culmination of this evidence painted a damning picture for the prosecution. The combination of the mushroom traces in her dehydrator, her online research into the specific poison, her foraging background, and her conflicting stories to the police formed the foundation of their case against her. Investigators concluded that this was not a tragic mistake, but a calculated act. Based on this evidence, Erin Patterson was arrested and charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder, setting the stage for a high-stakes legal battle. The trial of Erin Patterson began at the Latrobe Valley Magistrates Court in Morwell, Victoria, and it immediately drew intense media scrutiny. The case ran for 10 weeks, featuring testimony from over 50 witnesses. The prosecution, led by barrister Nanette Rogers, presented a chilling narrative. They argued that Erin had intentionally poisoned her guests by serving them a meal laced with death cap mushrooms while ensuring her own portion was safe to eat. Rogers told the jury that Erin had even fabricated a cancer diagnosis as a ruse to convince her former in-laws to attend the lunch, creating a false sense of sympathy to lure them to her home. The prosecution also worked to dismantle Erin's claims of innocence. They pointed out that she had initially told people she also felt sick after the meal, a claim the prosecution argued was a deliberate lie, designed to deflect suspicion from herself. Her changing stories about where she had sourced the mushrooms were presented as proof of her guilt and her attempts to cover her tracks. The discovery of the food dehydrator containing mushroom traces was a cornerstone of their argument, presented as irrefutable proof that the poison had been processed within her own home, under her control, before being served to her unsuspecting family members. In a dramatic turn, Erin Patterson took the stand as the sole witness for her defense, spending a total of 8 days under intense cross-examination. Led by her barrister, Colin Mandy, the defense argued that the poisoning was a terrible and unforeseen accident. Erin testified that her cancer story was not a malicious lie, but a pretext she used to gather her family to discuss her upcoming weight loss surgery, a sensitive topic she felt uncomfortable raising directly. She insisted she had no intention of harming anyone, and that the presence of the death cap mushrooms in her meal was a catastrophic mistake. To explain why she did not get as sick as her guests, Erin offered a different explanation. She claimed that after the main course, she had binged on a cake that her mother-in-law, Gail, had brought for dessert. Feeling unwell from overeating, she said she later purged, which she suggested might have expelled the poison before it could be fully absorbed into her system. Her defense team portrayed her as a victim of tragic circumstances, a woman whose innocent mistake had led to devastating consequences, asking the jury to believe that this was a case of misadventure, not murder. After 10 weeks of compelling testimony and the presentation of complex evidence, the jury retreated to deliberate on Erin Patterson's fate. The nation waited with bated breath. On July 7, 2025, the jury returned with its verdict, finding Erin Patterson guilty on all charges, 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. The verdict confirmed the prosecution's narrative that she had intentionally poisoned her family members. The decision sent shockwaves through the courtroom and across Australia, bringing a legal conclusion to a case that had dominated news cycles for nearly 2 years. For the families of the victims, it was a moment of justice. The public and media reaction to the case was immense and unprecedented. From the moment the story broke, it captured international attention due to the shocking nature of the crime, a seemingly loving family meal turned into a fatal event. A daily podcast created by the state broadcaster ABC, which followed the trial's proceedings, became one of Australia's most popular podcasts, with listeners tuning in for every update. The domestic setting and the unusual method of poisoning resonated deeply with the public, sparking countless discussions, debates, and amateur sleuthing online. Several production companies have already announced plans for documentaries about the case. With the guilty verdict delivered, Erin Patterson now faces a lengthy prison term with a potential life sentence for the murders. The sentencing hearing will be the next major step in the legal process, where the judge will determine the exact length of her punishment based on the severity of her crimes and any mitigating factors presented. This hearing will be another highly anticipated event, providing finality to the judicial proceedings and offering a sense of closure to the victims' grieving families who have waited patiently for justice to be served for their lost loved ones. However, the legal saga may not be entirely over. Erin Patterson's legal team has a 28-day window following her official sentencing to file an appeal against the conviction. An appeal could challenge aspects of the trial, from the evidence presented to the legal rulings made by the judge. If an appeal is lodged, it would initiate a new round of legal arguments in a higher court, potentially extending the case for months or even years. For now, a community remains shaken, and a family is left to mourn, as one of Australia's most perplexing mushroom mysteries moves into its next chapter.